It is time for the 2022 What's in My Camera Bag as a Pet Photographer video for the year. Whoop, whoop. This bag is ginormous, so I'm taking it off the table. All right, as you most likely saw from the title of this video, there has been some big upgrades to the camera bag this year, and I wanted to give you a little bit of the reasons behind that and what I think of the new gear, all those great things. So it started off in December. I am part of the Sony Pro support. If you have multiple pieces of Sony equipment, it's totally worth I think it's $99 a year to be part of Sony Pro support. And I sent my cameras off for cleaning while I was taking a break. And so I got them back all sparkly clean, and I kept looking at the new camera that came out a year ago, the A1, and oh gosh, I'm trying to figure out how to add it to the camera bag. And so I'll show it to you in a second, but what I ended up doing, and I'm not sponsored, I know a lot of people are sponsored by KEH, but I tried to sell my Sony a7R III and one of my lenses that I'll tell you about in a second through like Facebook Marketplace, and I got a lot of scammers and it just wasn't working out. And after about a week, I gave up. I said, I'm just gonna sell this through KEH. It took a little bit longer just because I tried to do it at the holidays, but that all went really smoothly and I was able to have that money to put towards the new camera. So, for my pet photography gear going into 2022, let's go over the different pieces. So, this camera is the Sony A1. I am really, really excited to have this camera. It's been out for about a year and I've been drooling over it ever since. Watching all of the reviews about it, watching people go out and photograph with it. And now I have it in my hands and I can share it with you if you're considering this camera for your pet photography. You may know that I do pet photography and videography and portraits for people. And I also do a fair amount of of wildlife and landscape and kind of nature outdoor photography. And my husband and I have a second YouTube channel called Cattail Chronicles, and I've talked about the Sony A1 and the 8 things that kind of surprised me about it for the wildlife photography side. And if you want to see that video, I'll link to in the description. But some things that are kind of cross both ways. So one of the things I really love about the Sony A1 is that I think it has a perfect amount of megapixels. My Sony a7R III had 42, which was also really great, but I didn't want, Steve's got the a7R IV, my husband, and I think it has 61 megapixels, and that just seems like too much. If I was doing high-end commercial photography, I might consider that camera, but I think the 50 megapixels on the A1 is absolutely perfect. 50 megapixels is awesome. And what I was using for wildlife before is my backup camera now, which I'll tell you about, and it only has 24 megapixels. So it was really hard to crop in on, birds that were far away, or if you're photographing a dog and it's way across the field for whatever reason, and you want to crop in, you just don't have as much with 24 pixels as you do with 50. So I'm really excited about that. Also, the A1 is really set up for speed. People that photograph sports and high moving animals and those running dogs, if everything is set right in this camera, you can get 30 frames a second. And that is faster than typical video. Like what you're watching now, a second of video is 24 actual frames. So that is so much. And the focusing is incredible. It's as good as the A9 II, and I think some people say it's even better. And it's a huge step above the a7R III that I used to have. I was having a lot of trouble getting that camera to focus on fast action, especially kind of running towards me, which I know is already difficult, but I have just so much excitement, looking forward to using this camera for action dog photography. And I plan on making a video about that. So if that's something that you're interested in, you want to see the A1 with fast moving dogs, make sure that you're subscribed and ring the bell and all that, because I will be putting that out here in the near future. I was going to film it when I was at the shelter a week or two ago, but we had a snowstorm. And so we put that shoot off until next month. So next month I will be filming the action dog photography with the Sony A1. The other thing that this Sony A1 is really well known for is its video function, which my Sony A7R III was really great too. So I'm glad to have photo and video function in this one camera. So that's been really great for that side of my business and for anything else that I want to do for clients or myself or any of my channels. So photo and video, just perfect. Now I've only had this camera about a month or so, I've actually taken probably 10,000 photos between now and then because it's bald eagle migration season. And so we're out there just a lot with these cameras. And I have had a chance to use them at studio photo sessions for my studio and for the shelters. So I've had a lot of experience, but I'm looking forward to even more that I'll share with you here too. Now, the downside to this camera is actually an upside. So I would say the downside is I like to set this in silent shutter mode, which is great. And I'm very used to that for wildlife. But once I started using silent shutter mode for my pet photography, it really threw me off because I didn't know always when I took the picture, which with wildlife, it's fine. You have something that's out of your control and it's gone and you don't have another chance until they fly by or run by or whatever. But with dogs, you kind of set it up. And so between that and the other thing I love about this is the EVF, the electronic viewfinder, has no blackout. So with some cameras, as soon as you take a picture, there's just this moment of blackness while it like writes to the card, I suppose. And so you kind of know because there's that flicker in the EVF. This doesn't have that. And so the first studio session I took this to, I had studio lights up and I had silent mode on and there's no blackout on the EVF. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, did it even take a picture? Did the lights go off? When this is out to your face, you don't always know if the lights went off. So that's kind of a downside, but I think it's not really. I think it's an upside. It's just something I personally need to get used to in the way that I photograph dogs, especially I would think in studio. So once I have a chance to really put it through its paces outside after all these snowstorms, I'll do a video about that too. Another potential downside is that and again, I think this is just learning curve, is the menu is different. It's actually better. It's got colors, there's touch screen. The menu is a little bit better. And so I just need to get used to that and how it's laid out. And many of the buttons I have already assigned. So I don't have to get into the menu that much, and I have my favorites menu, but it is a little bit different to get used to the nicer menu. It is a nicer menu if you're wondering. And then one downside that actually is a downside is the battery life. It's not great, especially if you're maybe outside and it's cold or you're doing that 30 frames per second. The battery just does not last as long as I think it should. So I may invest in a battery grip for the bottom. I'm just not sure yet. I have a lot of batteries because a plus side is that the same battery goes in the A1 as does the other Sony cameras that we have. Fantastic. So we have a bunch of batteries already, and I always keep a bunch with me. So far that hasn't been too bad of a downside, but I need to remember to like keep a battery on my person, like in a pocket while I'm at a shoot. So that could potentially be a downside. For some people, it's a downside that it's just the screen that pulls out and it doesn't articulate around. So that can be a downside if you want something where you can see from the other side, from this side of the camera. So there's that too. So the A1 I see as really a long range commitment. I had my Sony A7R III for 3 years. It was my first Sony, it was my first mirrorless, and I used it like crazy. I use it for everything. My cameras get a ton of use. And so this will be in my bag for many years to come. That's enough about my beloved A1. If you have any questions about the A1 and how it works for pet photography, go ahead and type that in the comments and I will respond to you. My backup camera is still, I still have just the lenses on there. My backup camera is the Sony A9 II, and it feels very much similar to the A1 with the speed, and I don't think there's any blackout on here, silent mode. They feel very much the same, and I use them almost exactly the same. So the A9 II is my backup camera, and a very good wildlife camera. Again, it's only got that 24 megapixels, which at first I thought, okay, that's not really a big deal. But you know how it is when you're out there and maybe you've got a dog on the other side of the field and the owner's walking towards you and you're like, oh, that's the perfect expression, but they're pretty far away and you want to crop it in. Or, you know, they're playing in the field. There's so many reasons that the sporadic dogs and cats and animals that we photograph, you'll need to crop in. And so it got to a point where I was like, because what happened is I picked up Steve's, my husband's A7R4 with the 61 pixels, and I took some pictures with it, and I realized what a difference. Oh my goodness. It's a great backup camera, and I will be taking this. It's also nice to have a camera with different lenses on it. So let me get to the lenses too. So, all right, now what has happened with my lenses? These are the only two lenses I have for the studio. I have a wildlife lens, the 200 to 600 lens that I only take out on wildlife. It's too ridiculous for dog photography. I filmed a video about that about 2 years ago, and there's just no way I'm ever going to use a 200 to 600 for dog photography. So at this point, I'm down to two lenses. What happened to the lens that sat right here? Okay. We'll get to that in a second. This lens is the Tamron 17 to 28 millimeter lens. This lens I use a lot for video. I can put this setup on my gimbal and film all day. It's wide enough, yet I can zoom in enough for any scenario I need to film for a commercial film client. I also love this lens for kind of that bobblehead look, or if I'm in tighter spaces. Really great to have this wider angle lens. And so far, this has focused well. This is the 17 to 28 2.8 Tamron lens, and it's been really, really great for me. This lens is the original 70 to 200 2.8 Sony lens. Love, love, love this lens. I got it immediately when I got the Sony A7R III almost over 3 years ago, actually. This is on my camera, my main camera, almost all the time. I switched these out for something the other day, but typically the 70 to 200 is on my main camera, which now is the A1. Use this constantly. This is my main lens. My plan was to get the brand new Sony 70 to 200. It came out in mid-December 2021 and it immediately sold out. And it has not been available anywhere since then. And that's been a month and a half ago now. So I cannot seem to get my hands on the new 70 to 200 Sony 2.8 lens. I really want that lens, partly because it is, I think they said 25% lighter. This setup is very heavy. So I want to get that for a lighter rig, and I think it's a little bit faster. But it's very expensive, and I've already kind of spent my budget on this one. So hopefully sometime this year in 2022, I can update this lens. Now the lens in the middle, what I had, and you've probably seen the video I made trying to figure out which mid-range lens to get, is I had the Tamron 28 to 75 2.8 lens as my mid-range lens. And I did a whole test. I rented the Tamron and the Sony equivalent and put it through its paces, except one thing. What I neglected to do was test focus. I got my other camera up here. What I neglected to do was test focus in dimmer conditions. And every single time I tried to use that 28 to 75 Tamron lens, even with the 2.8, it would not focus. And so what happens is, say I'm in a session in someone's home, which I do still, I'll take my lights and my whole setup to someone's house, and that lens is ideal for that situation because often there's not enough room in someone's living room or dining room for this lens, and this is just a little too wide. And so that 28 to 75 was meant to be this perfect lens for inside people's houses. It just wouldn't focus. I don't know if it was the darkness or what the deal was, and I got so incredibly frustrated. I said, I'll just live without it. And so I sold it. I sold it. And so I will be adding probably the Sony 24 to 70. Is it that? I think it's the Sony 24-70 2.8 lens. Part of the reason I didn't get that last time is because I thought it would be way too heavy on my gimbal, but I noticed that I only use this lens on the gimbal anyway. So I think that's not even an issue at this point. So I don't have the mid-range lens anymore. That's a huge change for my studio. And I think it's something I'm probably gonna have to add pretty quickly. I know a lot of you out there, you probably love your 24 to 70, and it might even be your main lens. So you can see that I'm really missing it. Bah. I'm not going to make a separate video on lights. I have not changed my lights. I still have the Flashpoint 600s, I think they are. I have 2 of those. Right now I have the Godox UL 150 video light on me. That's all I have right now. I'm going to get a couple different modifiers, softboxes, and I need to update my light stands because they're just not tightening anymore. I don't have the best light stands. So that's all I'm changing for my lighting gear. I still have the little Flashpoint speed light. I use that a lot. So I still have that I take to the shelters. And so my lighting gear really hasn't changed. And if you're still here and you're interested, there are 2 other changes to my camera gear for the studio, and they're for video. What I am filming on right here and right here is the Sony ZV-1 compact camera. This is a camera I love. And what happened was I was out filming for my other YouTube channel and a wind gust came along and it fell over and it broke. Yes, very tragic. Oh, my ZV-1. Needless to say, I went to Best Buy immediately and bought another one because I really need it for these style videos. But since I'm a Sony Pro Support member, I was able to send that camera in and get it fixed for less than half of what it would be to buy another one. So I now have 2 Sony ZV-1s, and I do have the Ulanzi wide angle adapter for one of them. So that's one change in just the video camera gear that I have. The other one is my GoPro. Now, if you're not into video yet, but you want to do a little something, get a GoPro. My previous GoPro was a GoPro Hero 7 Black, which is fine. This is the GoPro 10. What's really great about these is you can get a shoe that will go on top of your camera. So if you are interested in filming some behind the scenes, either for yourself, your own marketing, or to use it in your sales presentation to your clients, these are great, inexpensive cameras that you can slip onto the hot shoe of your main camera and get some behind the scenes kind of POV type of video. So I do love my GoPros, and now I have 2. So that was the other addition. And the only other addition, if you're interested, was my microphones. I have the Rode Wireless Go, and I sold the smaller set and got the Rode Wireless Go 2, which has 2 microphones. So if I'm doing an interview or Steve and I are out and about, we can both wear a microphone. And so I will use that when I film the videos here for you with Frank and I, as we do some of our kind of mock-up videos of different ways that I run things in the studio. Frank is going to act for me, so he'll have a microphone as well. Very handy. All right, there you go. That is my 2022 pet photography gear, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have questions about any of this, be sure to comment down below. And I think that's it. As always, I wish you many woofs, purrs, and TREATSs. Oh, and the only other thing that I didn't show you was the camera bag I added. And if you want to see a video I did all about that, you got to click right here on the next video.